Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
My job as a contracted cell phone technician in one of those big superstore chains suits me because I stay calm when others lose their minds. Most days, I deal with frustrated customers who just want their phones to work, and I'm usually able to help them out, or at least point them in the right direction. I've seen plenty of difficult people over the years, but I've never turned anyone away, even on their worst days. That was my policy until today. After what happened a few hours ago, I might just have to reconsider my approach to customer service. I was having a pretty normal morning, helping an elderly gentleman transfer his photos to a new phone when she walked up to my counter. The woman was probably in her mid-60s, and the first thing I noticed was the makeup. She had layers upon layers of foundation, bright red lipstick that extended way beyond her actual lip line, and enough blue eyeshadow to paint a small room. But what really caught my attention was her hair. It was teased up into this massive beehive that added at least 6 inches to her height. The way it was styled, with the hair swooping down on both sides, it looked exactly like the Greek letter Omega. That's when I mentally dubbed her Omega Karen. She walked up to my counter with her phone clutched in her hand and an expression that immediately put me on guard. She demanded that I fix her piece of junk phone right away, shoving it toward me across the counter. I took her phone and started running through my usual diagnostic routine. It didn't take long to figure out what was wrong. The phone was completely bricked. The screen was black, it wouldn't respond to any button combinations, and when I plugged it into my diagnostic equipment, nothing happened. I apologized and explained that her phone was bricked and would need to be replaced. I told her I had the same model on sale for $49.99, and that would be her best option. She immediately shot back that she wasn't buying a new phone. She insisted that since she bought this one at the store, she wanted it exchanged instead. I said that would be fine and asked if she happened to have the receipt for the old phone. That's when everything went sideways. Her face turned bright red, and I could see the veins in her neck starting to bulge. She started screaming at me, calling me a stupid piece of trash, and yelling about how she bought the phone almost a year ago. She shouted that she didn't have the receipt and that I should know she bought it there. She demanded that the company honor her as a guest and replace the broken piece of garbage free of charge. She was screaming at me like I had personally broken into her house and destroyed her phone with a sledgehammer. I tried to keep my voice calm and professional when I explained that store policy didn't allow exchanges after 30 days from purchase. She exploded even more, screaming that this was bull and accusing me of trying to cheat her out of $50. She yelled that she wasn't having any of it and that it wasn't her fault the phone was cheap junk. Then she blamed me personally, saying it was my fault the phone was broken. I was starting to feel my own patience wearing thin, but I kept my cool. The last thing I wanted was to escalate this situation further. I apologized again but explained that there was nothing more the store could do for her. I offered to call a carrier since her phone was less than a year old and should still be under warranty. Before I could finish explaining, she reached across my counter and grabbed my stapler. She raised it above her head like she was about to throw it at me and screamed that I better get her a new phone right now or she would throw the stapler at my head. I told her that threatening me wasn't going to solve her problem and tried to continue explaining that I could call the carrier to check about warranty replacement. She slammed my stapler down so hard on the counter that it broke into 2 pieces. Then she grabbed her broken phone, told me exactly where I could go in very colorful language, and stormed off toward the exit. About 5 minutes later, she came walking back with reinforcements. She had the store manager and one of the security guards in tow. The store manager looked annoyed like he'd rather be anywhere else. The store manager approached me and said that the woman had told him I wouldn't assist her with her phone. He asked me to explain what had happened. I started explaining what had actually occurred, but he cut me off before I could finish. He asked when I had thrown a stapler at her, which completely confused me. I was so shocked I almost laughed. I told him I didn't throw anything at her and explained that she had grabbed my stapler and threatened to throw it at me, then slammed it down and broke it. Karen immediately jumped in, screaming that I was lying. She claimed I had thrown a stapler at her while saying I was going to choke the life out of her. She demanded that I be arrested for assault. The security guard looked between me and Karen, clearly trying to figure out what was actually going on. He asked if I could back up my story with any evidence. I told them they could check the security cameras since they should have recorded the whole interaction. The moment I mentioned the cameras, Karen went absolutely ballistic. She screamed about how dare they believe some punk over her and told them they should be ashamed of themselves. The security guard explained patiently that they just needed to gather all the facts so they could explain everything to the authorities properly. Karen shouted that she didn't want to wait for the police and demanded they just fire me and get her someone who could help her. The security guard pointed out that she had just said she wanted me arrested, which seemed to confuse her logic. She screamed at him to stop putting words in her mouth and just fire me, calling me a piece of trash. The store manager looked like he was getting a headache. He explained that I was a private contractor who handled their phones and that they couldn't fire me because I didn't work for their company. He said that if I had done what she was accusing me of, it would be best to get video proof so they could have me escorted off the property. Karen reluctantly agreed to check the footage, probably thinking she could somehow convince them that the cameras were lying. All four of us headed to the security office in the back of the store. The security guard pulled up the footage from my counter and fast-forwarded to the right time. We all watched when Karen approached my counter, grabbed the stapler, threatened me with it, then slammed it down and broke it. The audio was crystal clear too. You could hear every word she said, including all the creative language she used to describe me and my ancestry. When we got to the part where she grabbed the stapler and threatened me, Karen completely lost it. She screamed that this was all crap and accused everyone of being in on some conspiracy against her. She threatened to sue us all for tampering with evidence and said she would see us all in court. She turned around and started walking toward the exit. Watching her stomp away after being caught in such an obvious lie struck me funny, and I lit out a small smirk. That was a huge mistake. She saw my expression and completely snapped. She spun around, walked back over to me, and slapped me hard across the face. Then she spit right in my face. The security guard heard the slap and immediately jumped into action. He grabbed Karen and restrained her while she continued screaming and thrashing around. Someone called the police, and within minutes, there were 2 officers in the security office. They asked what had happened, and we showed them the video footage of the entire incident, including the part where she assaulted me. The officers asked if I wanted to press charges for assault, and one look at Karen still ranting and raving in handcuffs was all it took for me to say yes. After filling out all the paperwork and giving my statement, the store manager came over and apologized for the crazy ordeal. He told me that Karen was now officially blacklisted from the store and would be arrested on site if she ever tried to come back. This happened back in the early 1970s when I was serving in the Navy. I was barely 21, working in a highly specialized technical field alongside 3 other guys around my age. 3 of us were white, 1 was black, but none of that mattered to us. We were just trying to make it through our service while the whole world seemed to be falling apart around us. The Vietnam War was raging, people were protesting in the streets, and morale everywhere was pretty terrible. On our ship, we found ways to cope. Our work area was located on an upper deck toward the back of the ship, and it included this high-end paint booth that became our little sanctuary. After hours, we'd lock ourselves in there with some marijuana and let the powerful exhaust system filter out all the smoke and evidence. It was the perfect spot because that booth could suck out anything: smoke, ash, even roaches if we needed to ditch them quickly. One evening after we'd finished our usual session, we were walking out of the paint booth feeling pretty good. We were red-eyed and giggling about something stupid when we bumped into the one person we never wanted to see. Let's call him Karen, because that's exactly what he was. A middle-aged, entitled chief petty officer who thought the world revolved around him. Karen was the kind of guy who made everyone's life miserable just because he could. Nobody on the ship could stand him. The other senior officers avoided him, the crew hated him, and we definitely couldn't stand him. This guy had a track record of filing false charges against sailors, getting them thrown in confinement on bread and water, making them lose pay and rank, restricting them to the ship, and piling on extra duties for no good reason. Worse than that, his incompetence put lives at risk. Fortunately, our direct supervisor was a decent guy, so we usually didn't have to deal with Karen much. But that day changed everything. Karen saw four young guys coming out of an empty room, clearly having a good time, and his paranoid mind started working overtime. In his twisted thinking, we must be up to no good. From that moment on, he made it his personal mission to make our lives hell. The harassment started immediately. Karen began assigning us to the worst details he could think of. We were scrubbing decks in the blazing sun while other guys got to work in air-conditioned spaces. We cleaned out disgusting grease from kitchen vents until our hands were raw. We scraped rotted food from broken refrigeration units that smelled like death itself. He put us on the worst watch schedules, making sure we never got proper rest. He even started doing surprise inspections of our living quarters, hoping to catch us with something he could use against us. But Karen crossed the line when he ordered 3 of us to clean the nuclear hold in bilges without any proper training or safety protocols. This wasn't just harassment anymore, this was dangerous. We had no idea what we were doing down there, and he was about to send us in without the right protective gear. We could have been seriously hurt or worse, and a mistake could have endangered the entire ship and port. One of my friends said Karen was trying to get us killed, and I had to agree. We all knew we needed to do something about this situation. When another friend asked what we could possibly do since Karen outranked us, I told them that maybe we couldn't beat him in rank, but we were definitely smarter than him. Then luck smiled on us. While we were stuck painting the Master-at-Arms office, another one of Karen's punishment details. One of us overheard some officers talking about the ship's first ever drug dog sweep that was coming up. When I mentioned what I'd overheard about the drug dogs, my friends confirmed they'd heard the same thing. That's when I told them I had an idea brewing. We decided to wait until the day before the sweep to put our plan into action. Back then, marijuana was cheap and easy to get, and it usually came with lots of seeds. We gathered up a bunch of these seeds and headed to the chief's living quarters while he was on duty. First, we went to his locker and crushed the seeds against the metal door, rubbing them all over the surface and into the cracks. Then we did the same thing to his bed, making sure to get the seeds ground into the mattress and bed frame. The smell wasn't strong enough for humans to notice, but we knew dogs would pick it up instantly. Next, we took this brick of terrible marijuana that someone had ripped us off with, the kind of stuff nobody wanted to smoke. We snuck off the ship and planted it under the front seat of Karen's 1969 Mustang in the parking lot. Right next to it, we placed a box of small plastic bags and a little scale, making it look like he was dealing drugs. Then we sat back and waited for the show to begin. The next day, the drug dogs arrived right on schedule. We tried to act normal when they started their sweep through the ship. We were working in our area when we heard all the commotion from the chief's quarters. One sailor commented that he could hear a dog going absolutely crazy, and another sailor agreed, saying it sounded like the animal was losing its mind over something. I acted innocent and wondered aloud what could be causing such a fuss. Of course, we knew exactly what it was about. That drug dog was going absolutely insane at Karen's locker in bed. The barking was so loud and frantic that half the ship could hear it. The investigators searched every inch of his living space, tearing apart his locker and bed, but they found nothing except the lingering scent that had driven the dog wild. But the seeds had done their job. The investigators were suspicious now. If a drug dog reacted that strongly, there had to be something going on. They decided to expand their search beyond the ship. We watched from a distance when Karen was escorted to the parking lot. The dog was brought to his car, and within seconds, it was going crazy again. This time, when they searched the vehicle, they hit the jackpot. They found the brick of marijuana, the plastic bags, and the scale. Everything needed to make it look like Karen was dealing drugs. Karen's face changed completely when he realized what was happening. His usual arrogant expression melted away. He started protesting his innocence, claiming he had no idea how any of it got there. His voice got higher and more desperate when they put the handcuffs on him. By the time they led him away, tears were streaming down his cheeks. We never saw Karen again after that day. Through the ship's rumor mill, we heard that he'd been given a bad conduct discharge and sent to military prison at Leavenworth. The harassment stopped immediately, and suddenly, our lives became a lot more bearable. Word spread quickly through the ship about what had happened to Karen. Some of the older sailors who dealt with his abuse for years seemed satisfied with the outcome. Our direct supervisor, the good chief petty officer, never asked us any questions, but I caught him smiling a few times when Karen's name came up. Karen never figured out who set him up. Even if he suspected us, he had no proof, and by then it didn't matter anyway. He was gone and we were free from his constant harassment. My father is 77 now. When he was younger, he married a woman named Maria and had 3 kids with her. They got divorced, but it was friendly because they wanted what was best for their children. The problem was, my father never really got over Maria. He still loved her deeply, even after their marriage ended. Later, he dated another woman named Anna and had a son with her. That boy is my half-brother, but their relationship didn't work out either. My father waited until his son was 6 years old before introducing him to his other 3 children. It didn't go well. His older kids weren't happy about having a new brother. Then my mother came into the picture. She met my father and fell completely in love with him. They dated for a while, and she thought they had something real. But my father broke up with her, telling her he still loved Maria and wanted to try getting back together with his ex-wife. A few weeks after their breakup, my father called my mother, saying he missed her and wanted to see her again. That's when I was conceived. When my mother told him she was pregnant, he accused her of lying and said the baby wasn't his. He demanded a DNA test because he didn't believe I could be his child. My mother tried to reason with him, but he wouldn't listen. After I was born, they did the test, and it came back positive. I was definitely his daughter. But even with proof, my father wanted nothing to do with me or my mother. My mother kept asking him to at least give me his last name, but he refused every time. Finally, she had enough and took him to court. That's when things got really ugly. In court, my father lied constantly. He claimed my mother was trying to trap him with a baby, even though he was the one who came back to her. He lied about how much child support he paid for his other kids to make it seem like he couldn't afford to support me. When the judge asked about visitation rights, he told the court he didn't want any involvement with me at all. The whole court battle was a nightmare for my mother, but she fought for me anyway. She wanted to make sure I had legal recognition as his child, even if he didn't want to be my father. I didn't really miss having a dad. My mother gave me all the love and attention I needed. When I asked about my father, she was always honest with me. She told me she had tried contacting him multiple times, asking if he wanted to meet me, but he always refused. What really hurt me wasn't not having a father. It was not knowing my siblings. I had 4 half-siblings out there who didn't even know I existed. When I asked my mother about meeting them, that's when I learned the full truth. My mother explained that my father never told them about me. She said he and Maria got back together, and Maria didn't want the other children to know I existed. This news crushed me. Not only did my father reject me, but he was actively hiding my existence from my own brothers and sisters. I was his dirty little secret. When I turned 18, my mother found my siblings' social media accounts. She suggested we could message them and explain everything. By then, I had given up on the idea of having a relationship with any of them. I told my mother I didn't want to reach out to them anymore. When she asked if I was sure because they might want to know me, I explained my plan to her. I said I wanted to wait until he dies and show up at his funeral. I wanted everyone who thinks he's such a great man to know what he really did. My mother looked shocked, but I had already planned it all out in my head. I would wear a black dress, high heels, huge sunglasses, and a hat. I would walk into that funeral looking like I owned the place. All those people who admired my father would finally learn the truth about him. I reminded my mother that even if he doesn't put me in his will, I'm still legally his child. I have the right to be at the will reading, and they can't stop me. When she worried that I'd be hurting people who love him while they're mourning. I told her that was good. I said they should know who they're mourning, and that his name deserves to be dragged through the mud. I know some people might think I'm wrong for wanting to do this. They might say I'm just hurting innocent people who are grieving. But I don't care. My father spent my entire life pretending I don't exist. He chose his precious Maria and their perfect family over acknowledging his own daughter. The way I see it, he made his choice 20 years ago. He chose to lie to everyone about me. He chose to deny me my siblings. He chose to abandon me completely. Now I get to choose how his story ends. When that funeral comes, I won't just be showing up as his secret daughter. I'll be showing up as living proof of what kind of man he really was. All those people who think he was honorable and decent will have to face the truth. They'll learn that their beloved patriarch was actually a coward who abandoned his own child. I've been planning this moment for years now. I imagine walking through those funeral home doors and watching the confusion on people's faces. Someone will eventually ask who I am, and I'll tell them exactly who I am and what their precious family man did to me. Maybe it makes me a terrible person, but I don't care anymore. My father had 20 years to do the right thing. He had 20 years to acknowledge me, to tell my siblings about me, to be any kind of father at all. Instead, he chose to pretend I never existed. Well, soon he'll be the one who doesn't exist, and I'll still be here. And everyone will finally know the truth about the man they're burying. The only thing I regret is that he won't be alive to see it happen. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.